r/AskReddit, men of Reddit who proposed and she said no, what happened afterwards with your life? My mother told my father no 3 times. On the 3rd time he got wasted at a local bar and basically started pouring his heart out to anyone who'd listen. Mind you, it's a very small village in the Italian Alps and my father barely spoke Italian and no one in the village spoke English, including my mother. Word got back to my mom about this sad American at the bar, so she went to find him and she told him she'd marry him. My parents celebrated their 44th anniversary last month. We met in her home country of Germany while I was traveling. I knew I was in love. We dated long distance for a while. Me flying to Europe. Her flying to the US. I suggested marriage so we could be together. She said no a few times. I didn't press. But I was patient and not being pushy. I knew she was worth the wait. Then it hit her that's how we could be together. If we got married, we could live in a country together. The difficulties of being born on a different patch of dirt. A few years later, I'm still married to my best friend and living with her in Germany. Not all no's stay no. Life goes on. My mum actually said no to my dad's proposal when they were younger. Not because they weren't in love, but because she wasn't sure if it was something she actually wanted to do, rather than something that society expected of her or whatever. They still stayed together and had kids, hence why you're reading this now. And then when my dad was terminally ill a few years ago, my mum plucked up the courage and asked him just to get her back after all those years. He said no before taking her up on the offer a few days later. He died a happy man. My dad proposed to a woman who said no. My dad was a violent alcoholic and she said she couldn't be with him unless he got clean. Took him a little while, but he did it. He wound up meeting my mom through a matchmaker and they've been married 25 years. If that woman never said no to him, he never would have gotten clean. It was the lowest point in his life. But it all brought him to my mom, who makes him happier than ever. My dad talks to her sometimes. She got married to someone else and they had a son who died from a medical condition. This is the story of my parents. My dad asked my mom to marry him several times. She said no, several times. One day my dad asked my mom to marry him, yet again. She said yes. He freaked out and left her apartment and dumped her. 3 weeks later he hated his life without her and begged her to take him back and marry him. They were married 9 months later for 16 years until my mom passed from cancer. They loved each other so much and had such a deep appreciation for each other. That was 25 years ago. My dad has not remarried. No one will ever come close to my mama. In 2017, Google came up with this idea to allow you to make photo books out of your Google Photos account. My girlfriend and I had been dating for almost 2 years and I knew she was the one I wanted to marry, so I created this wonderful photo book of all of our selfies together and ended it with a page made out of a photo I generated that said, "Will you marry me?" I then proceeded to put all these things into an album and build the photo book. What didn't occur to me at the time was that the album I put these in was a shared album and the other person gets a notification when you add new photos to it. And the other person that the album was shared with? My girlfriend. That evening, we had dinner and it all came out. She saw the photo, she wasn't ready. There were a few reasons why, but they were good reasons and smart reasons, mostly to do with timing, family, and finances. We weren't breaking up, we just weren't getting engaged at that time. A year later, we have fully discussed the concept of getting married. We went ring shopping, she picked her own ring, and by the time I actually did propose we both knew what her answer would be. We celebrated our first wedding anniversary in April. It seems to have worked out so far. And the photo book is on a shelf to my left as we speak. I was a young Marine. I was only home during the weekends. Was dating this girl for about a year from my hometown. When I asked, she said yes. Her dad, former Navy, kept saying we should wait. We put it off for a bit longer. Fast forward another year. She dumped me. Father informs me she has been sleeping with a lot of guys. like more than 50 over the 2 years we dated. And was very happy I didn't marry her. And apologizes to me for her behavior. She then totally ghosting everyone including her family for about 6 months. Find out she moved 7 hours away and was living under a house. Not a basement. Under a house with her new BF. She calls her mom to come get her. Mother and father ask me to go get her and bring her home. Good times. Good times. We actually got married, moved in together. 2 weeks later, she moves out, blocks me everywhere and never gave me a reason. Shortly after I was served with papers. Now I'm divorced. That was last summer and not sure where I am now, making work my main priority for now. I just want to know why for some closure, but that's too far gone now. I was the person who said no. We had only known each other for 3 months and he was smitten. I was more cautious. I said no, I like you but it's way too soon. He asked when would be enough time. I said maybe a year. He proposed again at midnight, 1 year after we first met. I said yes and we have been together 8 years now. Edit, I know a year was still not a long time, but we had a long engagement and didn't get married for another 2.5 years. We were dating for a little over a year but I was so sure she was the one. I drove 2 hours to see her at her college and went on a beautiful winter night walk and proposed. She looks me right in the eyes and said, "Oh, you thought this was serious?" Well, I don't know how to say this other than I have been saying other people. Well, actually I have been seeing other women. I was stunned. I got up, put the ring in my pocket and walked to my car, got in and drove away, never looking back, crying the whole time. Haven't seen or spoken with her in 7 years even though she has tried countless times to reach out. Now it's a story I tell friends who are nervous about asking their significant others to marry them. Reminding them that even if they say no it could be worse. She was in trauma from a past relationship, and at that time I wanted to help her move on, and in that act I realized that I've fallen in love with her, as she's the one who, despite being in depression, helped me out of my social anxiety. I just couldn't see her suffer. So I proposed to her, and got rejected, as she wasn't ready to be in another relationship, and since I confessed about love, she got more anxious and our friendship was temporarily over. We didn't talk or have contact for months. Later on, I somehow contacted her, we had a bit of talk, and asked how she was doing, and learnt that she has been shutting herself in her room, minimizing contact with people. I still had romantic feelings for her, but I wanted to be with her and help her move on, so I insisted being friends again. We spent our time like that, and honestly she's the only friend I had. Time passed, and when I saw she's getting back to her normal life, I proposed her again, and she accepted. It was a long wait to that day. I've never been happier in my life. It's been 4 years since then, though we have arguments due to different views, but we always come up with a solution to resolve things. And I can say this with certainty that nobody can love me the way she does. I feel lucky to have her in my life. I was the one who said no. We were high school sweethearts, had actually known each other since first grade, and despite me moving to a different city, we reconnected in high school. I followed him out to college and realized there was a whole other world out there besides the small towns I grew up in. He already had our entire life planned out, and it wasn't until we had dated 3.5 years and he surprised me with a ring and a proposal that I realized he wasn't what I wanted at all. He was lazy, never went to class, didn't stand up for himself, and was codependent. I said no. He then proceeded to literally stalk me. We lived in the same apartment complex, but different units. He would knock on my door all hours of the day. I never answered. He would call and text constantly. This was before you could block numbers on an iPhone. He attempted to break into my roommate's window and was successful because she had left it unlocked. I wasn't at the apartment and he told her, I was just trying to get some stuff. The very rare occasions I would open the door, very shortly after our breakup, he would force his way in or stick his boot in between the door so I couldn't close it. I called the cops numerous times but they never did anything. He would follow me if I left places. At one point, He somehow knew information that I knew he couldn't have known and found out he had somehow installed a program onto my computer to track all my passwords and keystrokes and activity. That was when I decided to change my phone number. He would leave stuff on our balcony. Letters, gifts, random crap. He did not stop and would threaten me often by saying he would find out my new phone number. Eventually, it did get less and less, however to this day, I still hear from him. I'm married now, for almost 4 years, and I've heard that he is also married and has a kid on the way. But a few months ago, he found my extremely obscure Facebook. It's not even my full name. It's half my first name and only my middle name. I have maybe 11 friends on there that he has no connection with. I really only use this FB to be in groups to discuss true crime, and asked me to meet up with him for lunch for closure. I blocked him, but I know I'll hear from him again somehow in a few months. It's ridiculous, honestly. I regret ever dating the guy. Thank you for watching my dudes. Comment what subreddit you want me to cover next. Later dudes.